I'm Wendy Baker, and I live here in Plattsburgh. I'm a 9th generation Vermonter. You know, that's my husband and I have lived here for about a year and a half, and I'm the owner here at the Cornerstone Bookshop.
So my name is Kyle Page. Originally I was born in New Jersey, but I grew up in the southern tier of New York.
Reading was a very big part of my growing up. Not around bookshops, however. My family went to the library in Burlington regularly, and I loved it. That's actually the first place that I encountered stacks of books, which I've found magical ever since. So, the first bookshop I went to probably. I must have been in college, actually, because I went right from the public libraries to school libraries to college libraries, and so it wasn't until I began to travel that I sought out bookshops.
I was born into a family of incredibly passionate readers. My mom, dad, and brother always had a book in their hands, always. And I developed that habit too. I read from a very young age. I was that kid in school that the coolest thing in the world was once a month when the teacher gave us those little scholastic newsletter of books. And my parents were wonderful of spoiling the crap out of me in regards to books especially, because they valued that. And yeah, when the book order would come in, I'd have a stack this size on the corner of my desk the teacher would put. So they are very instrumental in developing an enormous passion of books.
So I came into ownership of the store absolutely by accident. Owning a bookshop is one of those things that I had romanticized throughout, many years of my life, but you think, okay, well, I probably can't actually do that. It was one day, December 12th, actually, there was an article that came out in the Press Republican, and it was about how the Cornerstone was going to change ownership and how the past owner was looking for, change and was ready to sell this shop or move on. So I put the paper down, I said to my husband, I'll be right back, and I left right away, came down to the shop, spent 3 hours here, and I just loved every minute of it. And so, I went home and said to my husband, I think I'm going to need to buy that shop. And being the wonderful man he is, he has been along for the ride and been a huge contributor, so that's how it came into being. The transition was one that was a partnership. The former owner did, as Nancy, the former owner, when he bought it, had done for him. He showed me everything he knew about running the bookshop successfully and introduced me to some of the regular customers and helped me with everything I could think of, and he still does that today.
This was 2017. I was in Yondo's, and the people who own the comic store, I point that way because that's the comic store, they saw me in Yondo's, and they're like, Kyle, the bookstore's for sale next to us. You have to buy it. And I talked to Darcy, and she's like, yeah, let's do this. That kind of way it went. So we did it. The children's section was really non-existent. It didn't exist. And the front table area, when you walked in, it was this huge pile of mixed books. That was, what is this? Those are the two jarring things, but just the basic organization and all. And there were other things, and that was just little things I knew I could fix.
On a regular weekend day, we often will start with tons of people coming in, bringing us books, either for trade or for cash or for donation. So we'll work with members of the community in that type of thing. We sometimes take as many as 30 boxes at a time. So there's that, which means that there's a lot of cleaning of books and processing of books and things like that comes after that. Our usual customers run the gamut. We have some families who, their children come in and they frequent our kids section as a family often, and then we have other older members of the community that count on us to have series that they're interested in, and they'll buy 20 of something, and then they'll bring them back and trade them in, and then do the same thing of a different author, different series, and so. But it's a little bit more flexible maybe than a public library arrangement might be, so that works for them. And then, we have actually a number of college students, from a variety of places. SUNY Plattsburgh, certainly one where I think one of the things that's fascinating about this shop for those folks is there are just so many things here that you've never seen.
So I had one of the pen classes already, and it is honestly one of my faves.
Oh.
So then I saw that you got the mug, and I was like, ooh boy. Going for it.
Our customers are older, to a large extent. I would say at least 60. Most of my customers are older than we are. And they are huge romance readers, and they are huge action adventure mystery readers. Those are the two really big genres.
People come in and say, do you have this title? And often we'll say, well, we don't know, but we can show you where it would be. And if we don't happen to have it, then they'll find something else that speaks to them, which is a big part of the fun of a secondhand bookshop.
An important part, when Darcy and I decided to do this, one of the first things we latched on as a mantra was, what did Borders have that we don't have anymore? It was very important to us that as passionate book readers ourselves, when Borders left, which was our big bookstore, what happened? There's no LGBT books in this community. And there's a big LGBT community. Diversity. Oh yes, I agree, it's a hot issue, it needs to be. Where are the diverse books? Who's carrying them? Witchy stuff, tarot, who's doing it? Nobody, Borders left. Yes, we're small, but we want that, and we want to have that. I want to support our local writers. At Christmas time, I haven't done it yet, I love having a table with a lot of the local author books. And what I love about that, go to any bookstore anywhere in the country, they won't have that table. That's exclusive to my community, and I love that.
It's hard, we have 75,000 titles here, and it's hard to imagine the different things that are here. They're also books that span decades. So you can find something here on how to get a man to marry you, which obviously is not politically correct now, but when you read some of those things, you realize, okay, wait a minute, this is how far we've come, and you can do that with a lot of different aspects of society here. So that's, as well as environmental sustainability, any kind of thing that you're interested, you can find some history of how it was written about over time, most of the time, and so that's kind of interest. We have a huge following around the classics, and I don't know if that's because maybe they're not required in high school curriculum, classes the same way that they used to be, but big following in the classics. So it really runs the gamut, and it keeps us on our toes.
Walden Books, Borders was bigger than Barnes & Noble, considerably, and Amazon completely took them out with that move. So within 5 years, they didn't exist anymore. So that was one huge thing that happened to the industry, was Amazon was able to kill the biggest books chain. So many people back in those days like, oh my God, print is dead, books are dead. No, we're alive, we're well. It's another thing. Google's not a good search engine to use because it's too generic. And so the other thing is it's too big. And if you type in Martin Luther King, it'll say in the top corner, well, in 0.26 seconds, ooh, we found 10,800,000 blah, blah, blah. When you go to a library or you go to a bookstore, we're gonna hand you one or two because we don't have the algorithm. We have instinct. We kind of know what you're looking for. So we ask a couple questions to personalize it, and we got it. We're not gonna overwhelm you, and we're probably gonna give you exactly what you need.
Well, I don't know anyone who's ever made a memory on Amazon. And I think when you walk into the front door of Cornerstone, you're affected right away. You're just affected by what's around you. So first, I would say that there are a number of people who come in for a specific title, and they leave with something very different that they're happier with than if they had found that title. Secondly, I would say that what Amazon does is, if you're a regular user of Amazon, is they will give you more books like the ones that you've chosen, which is wonderful for some purposes. However, it can narrow your reading interests. And one of the most valuable things about being a prolific reader is that you're taking in information from different perspectives in different subject areas, and you're tying in different types of information across disciplines. So here you can go to the philosophy section, the history section, and historical fiction and pull some things that are similar in nature and yet give you different perspectives about something similar. And that's an entirely different experience than what Amazon will give you, which will narrow what you're doing through their algorithms. So this is a broadening experience, that's a narrowing experience.
So 5 years from now, we got to be out of this nonsense, and we will be back on the plus side. I personally want to take this story, I want it to grow. My vision is I want to replicate what Friar Tuck was. I don't want to get as big as Barnes & Noble and Borders, that's big. But I want to get to where Friar Tuck was, or a Walden Books. I'd like to grow the LGBT, the witch, the diversity. Those are areas that are still small. I'd like to grow bigger. I'd like to find more of those Blackstone type presses. I want to find more presses that are great books that people up here can't find because we're not Borders, we're not Barnes & Noble, we don't have them. So I want to replace that and be that, but on a smaller scale. I also want to have more and more local authors.
What do I think the bookshop will look like in the next 5 years? I think we will be much more specialized. Right now we have a historical fiction section. We might have a World War II fiction. We might have strong female protagonists, in a certain area. So that people come in looking to understand something and to have an experience sort of similar to what Netflix does. You've seen them be more and more specific relative to the types of movies. It used to be there was only about 4 categories, right? And now, I don't know, what are there, 15 or 16? And you just think, God, really? They categorize, movies like that? So I think that we will probably become more specialized like that, and we'll change those things up so that people are coming in and seeing books put together in different ways, maybe even in interdisciplinary ways in our nonfiction approaches.
Honestly, I'm incredibly blessed that I am extremely happy of where I am now. I love having this bookstore. I can't begin to tell you how much I love this and having this, and this is mine. So I don't want to correct anything. I love where I am. I'm with that person over there immensely. So between the bookstore and her, I don't want to jeopardize that. So I don't want to mess with the past at all. If I was to go back to myself in the 80s, I would put my hand on my shoulder and go, enjoy the ride. It's going to be a hell of a one.
The best thing about being at Cornerstone really is when people come through the door and they, they're looking to experience something new, and they've invited you to be a part of that. And, you can't put words to that. You also can't put words to someone who calls us and, their parent has passed away and they have a book collection that was treasured by their parent, and they would like to have us take ownership of it because they know that we'll take good care of it. And engaging with families as we go through those books, and they tell us the stories of how they were loved and why they were loved and where they came from and what they represented. Those are the kinds of things that make a bookshop more than a bookshop. And one of the reasons that I was so attracted by Cornerstone was that that is clearly here. That's what I heard in listening to the former owner have conversations, with people, which is, as I said, even more enjoyable than being around stacks of books, if you can imagine that.